Hello.
Well, hello. I'm
Where you
back.
been? Where have you been, boy?
I'm back. How you doing, Petey?
Good, buddy. How about you?
Woo,
See
better.
how my fishy shows up now? Wherever is he? There. See, he
There he
shows
is.
up. Now he shows up better.
Oh,
See,
should have one on the other side of you, shouldn't you?
I got one somewhere else, but I don't know where he is right now. He's over there somewhere. There he is.
There you go. There
Head
you
to
go.
head. They're going head to head. They're fighting each other here, but all right, about that.
Mayhem in the house while the boss was away.
Well, you gotta have some fun. You know what? Out of 365 days a year, there's got to be a couple in there with some fun in the workplace space. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you loud and clear.
Anza's been out of the office for a week. Now, if you look over his shoulder, his left shoulder there, you're going to see a hat on that wall. It's the only thing that's changed in his whole office. He says, "Hey, what the hell's that hat doing up on my wall?" He friggin' noticed it.
That was not there before I left, okay?
No, it was not. You are absolutely correct, sir.
Get the whole story. I'll let you fill me in later.
Okay, no worries.
So first of all, it's great to be back, and I'll explain to you what happened here in a couple of minutes. Let's just start the show off. We got a great episode tonight, by the way. I'm really excited about this. Nice haircuts, boys. Wow.
Yeah. Well, thank you, buddy.
Yeah.
Trying to get her close to the wood if we can, but every now and then, you know what? It's funny. I still notice to this day, and when you and I shaved our heads, it was the biggest time. And I noticed, like this time of year, when you get a new haircut, do you ever notice the cold air on your head?
Oh,
oh my God!
You remember we went?
To England.
I think the week after that week we went to England, and we had the toques on the whole time.
Yeah.
It was freezing.
Yeah. It was crazy.
So anyways, just quickly, contests. We are down to our last Mercury motor. You gave away a motor while I was gone.
That is correct. I gave it away to a nice young lady too, by the way, just to let you know.
And now, okay. So first of all, let's kind of tell folks how the draw works. Okay, it's all you push a button from our standpoint because it's done off-site, and it's a third-party platform that we use called Viroscope, and all we do at 3 o'clock on the 15th of the month or whatever date, or the first of the month, whatever it is, we just push a button.
Correct.
And poof, a draw is done. Automated draw is done, and we're given a name of a winner. So we have absolutely nothing to say about it. However, what I was told this week while I was convalescing, Peter moved in to push that button. And what I was told is before he went to push the button, he told somebody, and I don't know who, that you were going to draw a young lady.
Yeah, I did say that. That's exactly what I said, buddy. Just I don't know why.
And what prompted it?
Well, I mean, because this is such a man-dominated sport, and where we are, and all this stuff.
We've had three females win.
Okay, that's okay. We like to let our ladies win too. We need to keep our lady audiences there, and the ladies treat me nice, and I like to treat the ladies nice. So I said, my buddy Jordan over there, he says, I am going to choose a nice lady for this one. Honest to God, that's it. But to get even better, just how fluky this was, I said, okay, Jordan, I need a countdown from, I think I said 13. I said, I need a countdown from 13. Start now. And he did a countdown, and that boom, and I hit it, and I hit that lady. I swear to God, we were just farting around in there, just doing stupid shit, just waiting for it. So
I can tell us, no way. Yeah, he predicted, he called it.
I did.
Anyways, congratulations. Do we have her name, by the way?
I don't have it with me right now, but I'm sure Mikey or Jordan can somehow get it up there sooner or later.
Yeah, if you could give it up there, we could say congratulations to her from the Ottawa area, right? Nepean,
correct.
There, right?
Yep, just on the outskirts, one of the little suburbs, I guess you'd call it, or whatever, of Ottawa.
Very close. Only one.
Last one. Sorry?
Only one left.
One left, people.
And we saved the best one till the last.
Oh.
This is the best Mercury 2.5 4-stroke
Natalie
technology that you'll ever see. It's Natalie D'Ascenzo from Nepean. Actually,
so what did you modify this next one coming up? The most like you're saying, this is a special one. Did you hop it up a little bit?
I can't say.
Ah, you took it to the Tony and extreme.
Warranty will be void if I say so.
I'm sure you avoided a few warranties on outboards in your day, hopping them up with reeds, etc.
So anyway, so it's the last one. Make sure you all get in on it. It's the last opportunity. No more excuses after this. Go to fishncanada.com, enter the Mercury 2.5 contest. While you're at it, make sure you enter into the Princecraft Mercury package contest as well, which is being drawn on the 15th of December. So we have a few weeks left for that one.
Yeah,
I see it 2 weeks before 15th of December.
About 2 weeks, pal. 2 weeks, not a few.
Wow.
A couple, not a few.
No, today.
Oh, no, sorry. No, sorry. I'm thinking November here. Shit, I just lost the whole month.
Scared me.
Still lots of open water left.
I know I'd been up for a little while, but geez, all of a sudden I thought I was off for 6 weeks. Anyways, make sure you get there. Fishncanada.com. It's where it's all happening. All kinds of great news. Speaking of news, there's a great story that I just want to go over that the boys put up while I was convalescing, and it had to do with well, actually, you were the one who brought it up. It had to do with that gentleman by the name of Randy Crossan, is it?
Yeah.
Who, for whatever reason, decided to break up a fishing party on Rice Lake one early morning, and take his great big, I don't know, it looked like maybe a 35-foot scarab or something nasty, great big offshore racing boat like a cigarette boat, and decided to go running through this pack of walleye fishermen on Rice Lake one Saturday morning. For those of you who are not in this neck of the woods, you might not have seen this, so we want to take advantage of the fact that we have it. We'd like to show you the video. If we could, Mike, please.
My kids would love that. My kids used to love when I did. They go, "Do the bouncy boat, Daddy. Do the bouncy boat." They used to love when I do that. I hated it. You and I hate it when we're running a boat. Do the bouncy boat, Daddy. Oh God.
That is quite a scene, man. When I first saw it, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I mean, that's pretty aggressive for somebody to go.
I think when you first see it, you want to not cry. You want to slap the guy upside the head and say, "What are you doing here?" You know what I mean? And then go from there. But as usual, there's always a motive to a story, I guess. There's no excuse for what he did, for sure. But there's a motive to the story. There's
3 sides to every story.
Yes,
right?
Indeed.
There's the right, the wrong, and then usually the truth somewhere in the middle. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. This gentleman was charged. Obviously, they were taking videos of him and pictures of him, so it wasn't like he was going to get away. He eventually got, when he settled down, he eventually got charged by the OPP, and is scheduled to go to court, I think, in a couple of weeks.
November 25th.
November 25th. In the meantime, though, there was, and I thought right away, there's got to be more to this. Unless he's completely under the influence of alcohol or some sort of, substance, there's no way that a sane, normal, regular human being would do that. First of all, it's dangerous as hell. And secondly, you just wouldn't do it. It's just not something that, so I kind of thought that there was something weird about it. And lo and behold, we find out there was in the Northumberland Times, I guess it is, recently, a couple of days ago, a further story was published. And it says the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry made a lot of residents happy on the North Shore of Rice Lake this past weekend. So it says a number of anglers were fined for various offenses, including using an artificial light to attract fish. Coburg resident Randy Crossan, who was a gentleman driving that great big boat, has had a cottage at Shady Acres on the north side of Rice Lake near Keene. Shady Acres has over 300 full-service campsites nestled in McGregor's Bay. In fact, we've fished that area, Pete. We've gone back in that bay and caught largemouth there.
Yeah.
Anyways, Crossan, along with other cottagers, have had a number of issues with nighttime fishing. It goes on to say there's been a lot going on over the years at night. You go down at night and it's almost looks like Toronto with lights lighting up the lake. So these anglers are bringing in lights to light the lake, and then they're fishing the fish that are being attracted to those lights, which is totally illegal. It has been forever anywhere. Anyway, so finally Crossan couldn't stand it anymore, and he got in his boat, and he said, I'm going to go break up the party. And that's what he did. So subsequent to all of this, there have been 25 charges laid by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, because according to Conservation Officer Chris Jones, they've received quite a few complaints regarding the night fishing and the use of artificial lights. So upon investigation of this group, 15 of them were charged for using an artificial light to attract fish, one for catching a walleye that was too big. There's obviously a slot limit that he didn't account for. 5 charges of improper navigation lights or weren't using them at all. And 2 counts for improper safety equipment, and 2 for fishing with no license, of that group that you just saw on the screen. So I'm not saying hooray, Randy, good for you, but
no, you can't, because you know what? Because the old vigilante thing, although we all love to grab a baseball bat like Ray Donovan and just start walking into a bar and clubbing some shins and etc., that would be so awesome to do. But you can't do that kind of stuff, you know? Remember the old Charles Bronson movies, the vigilante stuff? That was great, but you can't do that. Randy knows you can't do that. He lost it. He got pissed off and lost it, and then now he's going to get charged for it for sure, and justifiably so. He has to get charged for that. That is reckless. That's careless. That's endangering people's lives, etc. Right? So, the good thing is that everybody gets charged out of this. You know what I mean? So all these illegal anglers, the law says it's illegal to use artificial lights to attract fish, except when fishing for rainbow smelt, lake whitefish, or lake herring, Cisco, using a dip net, or if the light is part of a lure attached to a line used in angling. So that's the law written in Ontario's, M&R book, we'd call it. So that's the rules.
So anyways, we thought we'd shed a bit of light, no pun intended, on that situation for those of you who have been keeping an eye on it. Randy wasn't completely out of his mind after all, although he behaved like it. But
so if somebody said, and of course, where is the M&R? Well, the M&R was what called in. If you see that, there's this Facebook user who says that. There's a bunch of different comments. Somebody said they wanted his boat. They said, Jera Harvey, what a tool. I need his boat. What a tool. Anyways, so we're going to try and keep everybody posted, by the way. After November 25th comes up, we're going to try and get the story as quick as we can. Both stories are on fishncanada.com right now. So
I would love to, if anybody can make this happen. I'd love to invite Randy on the show.
Sure.
I'd love to talk to Randy about this.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
It'd be great. Maybe after his court date, maybe when maybe they throw out the charges because Randy did the right thing. Maybe, you know.
Wait a minute. Why don't we do this? Why don't we invite Randy, and on the same show we'll invite the Minister of Natural Resources himself, John Yakubuski. That might be, and not tell either one of them that we're going to do that.
I think that there's a better battle out there than that. I don't think.
I like that.
I'd rather have all those 20 people that got charged on one side and Randy on the other, them chatting it out, have a little battle scar galactica.
Speaking of battle scar galactica, I had a bit of a battle.
Oh my God, you're not. I don't even want to talk about this. Okay, I just ate my supper. I want to hold it in, please.
So,
God.
So anyway, about 3 weeks ago, I started battling a bit of eczema. I I'm one of those people. I think 1 out of every 5 people suffers from some form of eczema, drying of the skin in various parts of your body. I've had it forever, and it comes and goes. I'll scratch a little bit, or on my feet, or on my hands, or my elbow, or back of my neck, or God knows, God forbid, other parts as well. But it comes and goes. It's there for a few days and then it's gone. Well, about a month ago, I started having a bit of a battle with it on my foot, on my left foot, and I suppose I may have scratched it a little bit, during the attack. I may have scratched it somewhat, although I can't say total certainty. Chances are real good I did scratch it, and it became infected, and I developed cellulitis. I'd never even heard of this disease before. I developed something called cellulitis, and it started very quickly. I mean, it just boom started, and my foot just was red, bright red, swollen, and it started traveling up my ankle and up into my calf and my knee. And so, obviously, it became a bit of an issue, and I went into the hospital. And to make a long story short, we've got it all under control, and I'm fortunate enough to say that it's gone, and we're on the road to recovery. So I know a lot of you were worried about what happened to Ange now, having had the heart attack last year, and of course with COVID running rampant, there was all kinds of speculation as to my health, but none of that was the case.
Tim Sturgeon says, Ange, are you falling apart like me?
Yes. But I wanted to share that with you because I wonder how many of us, especially guys, women probably are a little more in tune with these things. I'd never heard of it before. Let me show you what it looks like.
Randy DeRosier does. Oh, geez. Oh, my God. Here we go. No.
There's a warning.
No, wait. Okay, let me just, before you show that, this is even worse than Donald Trump's hair. Okay, this is even worse than that. Just to let you guys know. Okay, here you go. Okay, go ahead.
Donald alone.
Oh.
Okay, so that was the start of it, and then it got worse. There's now it's full blown. I'm moving up my leg, and this is from this morning. Hello. Oh man, I still can't believe that was attached to me.
I can't believe we just showed that to our loving audience. Yeah, ooh, D, thank you, D. Willett. And probably Gooby too.
And so here's the things I found out and why I wanted to share this with you. So I was on the phone the other day talking to an old buddy of ours, Pete, about something else, and so I told him. He says, "How you doing?" I said, "Oh, not bad, but I got this thing happening in my foot." So, "Oh, what thing?" I said, "Oh, I got this infection."
These comments are great.
Cellulitis? I said, "Yeah. How do you know about that?" So I've had it twice, and so we got talking about it, and apparently the most common way that you get this, and it was verified this evening, because
these guys are killing me over here on the chat. They're the best. Pizza foot. Oh my God, I'm out.
So it is apparently a lot of times it's caused by mosquito bites. And that's why I thought it'd be great to talk about this quickly tonight. Because we're all, susceptible to mosquito bites. And I guess when you, there goes my supper, no kidding. You should have been on my end of it for the last 2 weeks. But apparently when you scratch a mosquito bite and, you scratch the top of it off, you're exposing that secondary layer of skin, or even worse than that in some cases, that's where it comes in. And that's where, I know. This is funny because I said to my wife at one point, I got to have cones on my hand like dogs have on their ears.
Oh my God. That's good, Alex. That's awesome.
Apparently,
Poor Frederick.
Apparently, mosquito bites, if you scratch them too much and you expose your flesh, there is a chance that this bacteria staph infection gets in there and causes cellulitis. So keep an eye on things. Don't scratch. It hurts. It's ugly. and it takes away from what you enjoy doing, all the things that we enjoy doing. So just be careful with it. That are it. I love your comments. Keep them coming, by the way. I'll make
they're awesome.
I'll make a collage of them.
George, your buddy George Pern, he says he's just lost his foot fetish. He had a foot fetish before. He obviously doesn't have that anymore. You cured George that one.
There you go, George. I owed you that one.
Oh, God.
Anyways, I'm all good. Got a good, clean bill of health earlier this evening, and just a matter of a few more weeks, and it'll be completely gone and behind us. Just like this, the time is quickly scurrying behind us. We need to move along.
Yes.
It's time for a little fish talk, folks, the fun part of the show. This time we're going to talk about walleye strategy.
Hiya folks, Gord Pizer here for Outdoor Canada magazine. I want to talk about one of my all-time favorite fish, and that's walleyes. And you know what? It's Canada's #1 most popular species as well. My favorite strategy when I take folks out fishing, I always start the day aggressive, usually trolling, maybe a crawler harness, but moving along with the boat fairly aggressively. Every time, though, I see a bunched up concentration of fish, I'll hit the waypoint button on the sonar unit, and I'll mark those concentrations. Then when the trolling bite slows down a bit, I'll pull back to those waypoints and start casting them. Usually I cast with a swim bait and a fairly heavy jig. When that action slows down, I position the boat right over top the schools, drop down a jig, a minnow combination, or a night crawler leech, and I mop up. So start the day aggressively with that moving presentation, then mop up with the jig.
That's it. That's all you have to do.
That's all you have to do.
Big deal, man.
Gordon Pizer, the mop-up man. I love it.
How you doing, Gordy?
I'm doing. Can I tell you my cellulitis story?
Don't tell me you have cellulitis too.
No, but a friend had it.
Okay.
From a northern pike bite.
Yeah.
And Ange, I'm sure you know this, but necrotizing cellulitis is flesh-eating disease.
Yeah.
It is related to what you have. And anyway, he got it on his hand, and he woke up at the middle of the night. He just got a northern pike. I think he put his hand inside the gill, and he got you know how you get scraped.
Yeah.
Woke up in the night. His hand was black. They rushed him to hospital. And had they not been able to stop it as it progressed up his arm, by the time it got up to his shoulder, they were going to remove his arm.
Oh, I know. It's terrible. I mean, I'm making light of it only because I went, man, I got out of that one. Okay. But it's a terrible, terrible thing. It's just awful.
It is.
I've never heard of it, but now that you mention that, right? How often does that happen? We come in contact with fish, especially on a release or something where we get poked or cut or slashed. And how many of us carry some kind of disinfectant out on the boat?
Yeah.
Let's see a show of hands.
I do. And
we have a first aid kit. We just don't know what the hell's in it.
But yeah, so it's another one of those things that we need to be cognizant of, right? Because especially, Gordon, yourself, if we're flying into some place where we're going to be off the grid for 7 or 8 days, and you get this infection at the early stage of your trip, like, what do you do?
And my friend Ange, I think he was on Lake Nipigon at the time, and boating away back in. He was staying at a campground, and that's you got to get yourself down to Thunder Bay and into the hospital, and it's not to be taken lightly.
No, not anymore. That's for sure. But crazy things. Hey, by the way, congratulations to both you guys. You guys looked really good doing the show last week.
Oh, thank you.
That was my big highlight. I sat back in my bed convalescing, watching you guys. It's cool. Very nice show.
Did you get to move around at all, Ange, when you were out like that, or could when your foot was in that bad a shape? Could you even walk on it, or no?
Well, I have to go up and go to the bathroom.
Take a pee and stuff, right?
Other than that, no, I was on my back.
Really?
They want you to keep your foot elevated above your heart.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And get as least amount of blood, I guess, flowing to it on a regular basis while they pump you up with antibiotics. See, my problem was that when I first noticed that it was a problem, I went to the emergency way. And this, we talk about this for Lyme disease all the time about we put so much trust in doctors and the medical profession. Sometimes we forget they're just human, right? Just like we are. So I went in and it was all swollen up like that. And I'd heard from my friend of mine, my GP actually, from a previous time that, in a case like that, you got to get on IV right away. You can't have regular antibiotics because they're just not designed to be supercharged in one area like that, right? So I went into Emerge, and because this happened on Thanksgiving weekend, and went into Emerge and kind of showed it to him after I waited my usual 3.5, 4 hours to see somebody. But and I said, now, I don't want to tell you your job or anything, but I was told that there should be like an IV drip full of antibiotics that might take care. He's no, you'll be fine. Here, I'll just take these. I'll give you a prescription for antibiotics. You'll be good. You'll be good to go. So I did that. 7 days later, it's worse. Go back to the emergency ward again because it's on the weekend again, and I see another doctor, and I told him the story, right? Explained the whole thing. Now, I was told that I should have an IV drip. He says, no, I don't think I just think we need to change the antibiotics. Well, you'll be fine. I'll give you a prescription. Try this one here. I think you're going to be fine. 2-3 days, you'll be good. If you're not, good, then we'll look at it. Needless to say, I wasted another week, and by this time now, it's getting ugly and moving north, and so I finally got somebody that looked at it and said, why aren't you on an IV drip? I don't know. Great question. Whoa. Yeah. So anyway, so they put me on. It's funny because as soon as I got on the IV, boom, 2-3 days, it started settling down. So, but I'm good. I'm here. I'm good back.
He's back.
All right. Talk to us about this walleye strategy.
We've talked about this many times, but and it doesn't just apply to walleyes. Most people, when they go out, guys, they go out and they have a preconceived idea what the fish are going to be doing, and most of the time, it's that the bite's going to be tough. And we've talked about this. We become self-fulfilling prophets. It's tough because of the technique. You guys are the same as me. We go out. I always go out expecting I'm going to catch fish, and I'm going to whale away on them. I will slow down and I will finesse if I have to. But if I don't have to, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to put with a little minnow over the side of the boat catching walleyes? So go out and troll. Go out and throw 3/4 ounce. I always start the day either trolling, usually throwing a 3/4 ounce jig with a big 5 to 6 inch swim bait. Many times I'll throw a 1 ounce if I'm fishing a little bit deeper. And there's only one way you can present that, and that's quickly. Yeah. But if you're trolling, you're doing two things then. You're searching. So you're looking for fish. You're searching a flat. You see one here. You see one there. You maybe catch one. Oh, there's 2 or 3 over there. You hit a waypoint button. So you start the day fishing aggressively, and you only slow down if you have to. But, many times we'll go out. I remember about a year ago, I actually wrote about this in Outdoor Canada. And we pulled in. I had two friends with me, and we pulled in at the launch ramp here in town. And honest truth, the boys had kept track. We were near 100 walleyes that day. And when we pulled in, the guys that were pulling out ahead of us, they said, "How was your day?" And we said, it was amazingly good. And they said, "Man, it was awful." But you know what? If you go expecting it to be awful, it usually is. And we whaled away trolling. We hit waypoint buttons. We came back and, you catch the easy fish first. And if they stay easy all day, don't slow down. Keep throwing that swim bait. Keep trolling. Go back and forth. But if they start to slow down, Then you pull back, and now you've marked those fish. So you might have 5, 6, 7 little schools. They might even be 4, 5, just 6 fish. But now you come back on them, maybe throw out a marker buoy, whatever, pick them apart. And then when it slows down even more, now you go right over top. And if you've got live bait or a drop shot type present, now you really finesse them. But, you know, most days you never have to go to that stage. Most days you wail away on them all day long. And those folks that go out saying, ooh, it's blue sky, hot, sunny, flat, calm, the walleye bite's going to be tough, and they pick up, you know, a 6-pound test line outfit with a little tiny hook, a little tiny crap. Hey, they're self-fulfilling prophets.
You know, the reason I'm laughing, Pete knows why I'm laughing, because I spent the better part of, most of my life on a boat with a guy who was exactly the opposite of me, and that's my brother Reno. And he was like the word stealthy, or, you know, ultralight and quiet, and you know, it just didn't, like, he couldn't comprehend that. And inadvertently, you know, we go into areas and he would always, I would say 99.99% of the time, catch the first fish. And he would do it instantly. And he would do it with great big gaudy presentations. And I'm, you know, got 6 pound with the little thing and the thing here and that thing there, make sure the light and the wind and like all that stuff. By the time I've got this all calculated, he's got a couple of big fish in the boat already. And he's throwing these great big gaudy pieces of metal and plastic and wings and crap all over. But that's exactly what you're talking about. Because I used to go in expecting the fishing to be tough. So I was already downsizing. I was already into that stealthy, boy, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a 1 bite day. So I've got to be sure that, you know, I was starting every day like that. He wasn't doing that. He was just having at it. And it works. You're absolutely right.
Do you remember, Ange, last Friday when we were on the boat, you and I, and I was throwing that creature bait. You were saying you're throwing that creature bait. Now I was only catching small fish. When I was catching fish, it was a 4-inch creature on 17-pound fluorocarbon with a 1/4 ounce weight for smallmouth bass. Like Ange, are you out of your head, sort of thing like that? I always throw that first. If I have to go to Ange's stuff, I would go to it. But most of the times, you'd be surprised with fish to how aggressive they can be. It's pretty amazing. You know how they'll.
It's a great point. It's absolutely outstanding.
Yeah.
You know, the other thing that we're talking about in the video there is, and we've mentioned this many times on the show in the past, walleyes are one of the very, very few fish. Walleyes, they eat bait based on their own particular size. And the bigger the walleye gets, the bigger the meal it wants. And so if the day is aggressive, ask yourself how many times the biggest fish of the day was the first fish you caught. And it's, you know, you don't usually go through 25, 30 fish and then catch a big one. You catch a few big ones, and then all of a sudden they start getting a little smaller. In fact, on the bass side of things, you know, many of the better pros in tournament situations, if they get on and they catch 2, 3, 4, 5, and they're running, you know, 2 pounds, 2 1/4, and they need that kicker fish, they don't weed through large numbers. They move. And how often we catch those big fish the first time we pass through, first few casts that we make, and they're the dominant fish. They've taken up, you know, they're the first to get to the buffet table, and you might as well make an aggressive presentation for them.
Exactly. Give yourself a chance. Why would you try, if you're trying to boat a fish? I love the idea of fishing is all fun, but ultimately I want to get that fish to the boat and look at it and release it, take a picture of it, whatever, and enjoy that fish. That's what I do. I'd rather catch that fish on 20-pound line, knowing full well I'm going to get that son bitch back to the boat, than have to worry on 2-pound test line and I'm finessing it. I get the idea of the fun and all that, but there's too many things that go wrong with that lighter stuff too. I like the competition factor of casting out, figuring that fish out, catching them, putting them in the boat. Thank you very much, buddy, and putting them back. I just didn't know there was something about that, and I'd rather do it myself. I'd rather do it with heavy stuff.
You know, Pete, we never go the other way around. We never start off usually finessing, like with your 2-pound test or 4-pound test, and then at the end of the day, go up to 12, 14. We always stick at that small stuff. And if it wasn't working early in the day, you got nowhere else to go. When you start off with that aggressive presentation and, you know, trolling, especially now, we talked last week about the Bay of Quinte and the bite there, the big crankbait. To me, that's an aggressive presentation.
Very much.
That's the way to start, not just in the fall. That's the way to start all year round.
So are you saying that you would start a trolling pattern midsummer?
Oh, absolutely, Ange. 100%. Especially if if I'm on a lake I haven't been before and I got a pretty good idea where they might be. Maybe they're spread out on a shoal, or I'll troll that. I'll troll it with a big crankbait, a bottom bouncer. I might troll it with lead core line, troll it with a spinner rig. I mean, probably more walleyes have been caught with bottom bouncers and spinner rigs than everything else combined. When you think about it, that spinner's pretty good size. And then you've got a 12-inch, or, you know, by the time it is 12-inch, when you've got a 5, 6, 7-inch crawler, you got beads in front of it, you got a blade, you got noise, you've got vibration, you've got sound, you've got scent. You've put it all together. You got that heavy bottom bouncer, you're banging bottom, it's ricocheting. That's a pretty good aggressive presentation.
And you guys, I think the two of you were talking about it on last week's show regarding things like spoons. You know,
exactly.
That's a big aggressive presentation, and yet, as you know, there's some places where you're not throwing or casting spoons or throwing spoons. You're not fishing.
No,
and that's a classic example of go big, go ugly, or go home, right? And that's what that
Northwest Territories, Hans. When you and I have done those big lodges up there, we troll the biggest spoons we can find, or drift them if the wind's high enough. But we're getting at it because that smaller spoon is going to probably catch 4, 5, 7, 8, 10-pound lake trout. We're not looking for those fish. We're looking for the ones that eat those lake trout. You know what I mean? So the giant spoon.
Found it fascinating listening to you guys last week about the size, and you just mentioned, you know, those big walleye. They're used to eating, you know, a 10 or 12-inch walleye, or whatever else, you know, is in their territory. So the notion that no, it's got to be a little wee tiny thing, or you'll put, you know,
there's a lot of shad in the Bay of Quinte. There's a lot bigger perch in the Bay of Quinte now than there ever used to be. So the perch population is ridiculous in Quinte, and they're getting big. They're getting to be jumbo size. You're getting that, and I'll guarantee you, a 10-pound walleye he'll eat a 10-inch perch before he'll eat a 1-inch perch. That's for sure. You know what I mean? He will do that, and the amount of bait fish in Quinte is ridiculous. Between the shad coming in, the perch that are already there, it's incredible. And then the golden shiner, they have golden shiner. They used to have golden shiner in there. I don't know if they do anymore. They're big baits. You know what I mean? You're trying to imitate that stuff.
100%, Pete, and you know the walleye perch forage predator prey interaction, that is the classic. When you kind of first year biology in university, that is the classic predator prey interaction. A walleye is the largest member of the perch family. Their habits and habitats are very similar, and that's for a reason. Walleye see better at night and in dim light conditions. Perch are daytime visual sight feeders, and at night when the light starts dropping, perch settle down to the bottom and they almost go into a resting mode. And as they do that, that's at the very same time that walleye's peak activity and its predator prey overlapping. And you put a 2-inch perch down there and a 6-inch perch or a 9-inch perch, and you got a big walleye, it doesn't even look at that 2-incher. It's going for the 6, 7, 8.
No.
Crazy.
I'll tell you something here, and Hans and Gord will agree with this, but I'll let the audience in on a little something that I learned a couple of years ago. In that, you know how much if you don't like eating perch as a human, there's something wrong with you. I'm sorry. There's something wrong with you because it is such a delicious fish. Well, I equate that the same thing in the underwater world because one opening walleye, again, it was on Bay of Quinte. It was an opening walleye day, and I kept a couple of walleye, I kept a couple of pike, and I kept 4 or 5, 6 jumbo perch. Every one of those fish I kept and cut open had perch in their belly, including the perch.
I was going to say, including perch.
Including the perch, and they all had a whack of them. Like, I mean, now this is when this is opening day, so obviously this is the water temperatures in the 50s or whatever. It's cold. The perch really, I'm sure there's lots of big perch around, but there was a lot of these little wee guys in the pike and the walleye. They were eating, maybe 3 inch or less, and the perch were eating like 1 inch. But still, the point was, I did not see a sunfish in there, didn't see a bass in there, didn't see another walleye, but everything was perch. Everything ate perch.
And what's the best color lures for walleyes? Chartreuse, iron tiger, yellow,
absolutely,
green. And what colors are a yellow perch? I mean,
absolutely.
The reason perch are in those lakes are the same reason rabbits are in the bush. They are there to feed the ecosystem, to a large degree, and that is one of the key roles that yellow perch play.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. And now that you mention it, we're and listen, I know guys are watching this right now saying, yeah, but you're always talking about drop shotting and jigs and tubes and yeah, we're not saying stop using.
Okay, that right there is a smallmouth bait. Angelo's favorite smallmouth bait, a little shad-shaped worm. That looks just like a little perch. When you think about that honestly,
for sure,
looks a lot like a perch. Those are the
Yamamoto shad-shaped worm.
You can't beat it.
Bait like that right there, a curly-tailed grub. That color right there. It's funny we're talking about this because that color right there, that's more of a chartreusey color. This camera is not showing it. But Gord just said, perch colors. We throw that all the time. That's the kind of stuff we throw.
I'll tell you a little secret, guys, and this I've only shared this a couple of times. Our go-to lake trout pattern in the wintertime is fishing on shoals. Go to any good shoal that has yellow perch on it that is adjacent to deep water, and right at last light, first light and last light, and the lake trout come in, and again, they're feeding on yellow perch. The perch don't see well in those last light, and so they start dropping down. Liam and I have been of the biggest lake trout I have ever seen come through a hole in the ice. And we're out perch fishing here on Lake of the Woods, and we were just doing spectacularly well. I mean, big 12, 13, 14-inch yellow perch. Then all of a sudden, like within 30 seconds, the screen's bare, and we've been catching them for an hour and a half. All of a sudden, it was like, there's no fish here. And then within 2 minutes, Liam says, wow, look at the red mark on my sonar. And he pulls up to it. It was the biggest lake trout I have ever seen come through a hole in the ice, caught it on 4-pound test line, fishing for yellow perch. And it was about 32, 34-pound lake trout.
Oh, my God.
It was picking off all those yellow perch. And when you're a predator like a lake trout coming on top of a shoal like that, talk about easy pickings.
Yeah.
So here's the secret. Absolutely, Pete. But if you're fishing for lake trout and you're in white jigs, white silver tube jigs, I always dip the tails in chartreuse dye. And chartreuse dye will bleed all through the bait. And I don't know if they mistake it for a smelt. I don't know if they mistake it for a herring or a perch, but it shows them all three possibilities. And it is deadly, deadly, deadly.
Well, I recently had an opportunity to look at some underwater footage of big schools of bait. And one of them was perch in, I believe it was 35 feet of water, crystal clear water, 35 feet down. It could have been under low light, but I don't know. I can just go by what I could see. And it's funny because that brightly colored perch at 35 feet in clear water takes on a little bit more of a silvery In fact, the thing that distinguished perch from the other bait were the barbs.
Yeah.
Right. So you talk about a whitish, a gray color, as long as it's got some kind of barb to it, some kind of color to it in deeper water, it looks like a perch, man.
Huh.
It really does. They don't have that bright green down that far. So it's something to keep in mind too.
But the other thing, Ange, when you pick a bait like Pete just showed, that is the colors of a perch, when you get down in 35 feet, it does exactly what you're talking about. So we think they see it like what Pete's holding, but they see it however they see at 35 feet.
Yeah.
And so they see our baits the way they see perch, which probably isn't the same way we view perch once we bring them up to the surface.
Another interesting thing I learned about this underwater stuff too, it has nothing to do with what we're talking about now, but I thought I'd share it with you two guys because I found it fascinating. We're always talking about setting the hook. We're always talking about if you miss it, throw something else back at it because it won't bite the same bait. Like we've sort of conditioned ourselves to all these things, but this was compelling video that proved beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now, this was with smallmouth bass, and it had to do with crayfish, but I don't think it's any different whether it's a lake trout eating a cisco or a walleye eating a perch or anything else. And that is it. If it's a big bait, and it in this case was crayfish, they were eating these big. The crayfish seemed to be like 4 inches long. They were pretty big crayfish and nasty crayfish. But these smallmouth, various, and not just from one area or one particular shoot. It was a collage of shoots, right? But these smallmouths were picking them up, dropping them, picking up, dropping. They're trying to kill them, obviously, but they couldn't stand to have them in their mouth. So they'd scoop them up and poof, push them out, and then jump all over it, scoop them up, and I often wonder about our baits, especially if we're using an imitation crayfish or some kind of a bottom-dwelling bait. I wonder how often we're taking it away from the fish that was just starting to do its deal with it. You know what I mean? It just dawned on me that's a possibility. Right?
Oh, 100%. How many times have you seen folks throw out a tube jig and they'll pop it and they'll get a bite? And what do most folks do? They reel in really quick and look at
it's gone.
The fish hasn't moved, and I always say to folks in the boat, that bass or lake trout, it doesn't know that wasn't the spine of a dorsal fin that just nicked it in the mouth. It's not scooting away. It doesn't equate that with that's Ange or Pete up top throwing a hook. That was just a perch spine hitting me in the mouth, or a crayfish. Look how many times you catch smallmouth and their lips are all torn up from rusties, or they're ramming them right into the rocks and smashing their mouth. And we make the mistake when you feel a bite of reeling in to check our baits.
Yeah, isn't that wild, eh?
So true.
This one really drove it home for me because those smallmouth were working those crayfish. I mean, there was this one scene, this crayfish was extra nasty, and this smallmouth was just bound and determined this was lunch. And he must have picked it up and spat him out and picked about a dozen times at least. And every time he'd spin him out with even more force than he did the time before. And he'd try and spin him into the box. And he'd try. It was crazy. And
when we're fishing with plastics, soft plastics and stuff like that, I do a lot of Texpose rigging for plastics. Ange knows this. I do a lot of craws, a lot of creatures and stuff like that. The problem with that kind of rigging is that they do get crunched up. Even a fish can ball that bait up. But what these guys are saying here beside me is so true in that if I cast out and I feel a pickup, sometimes you don't feel the bite, but you'll feel a pickup. It feels like something weird, whatever. And then all of a sudden, oh, it's a fish. You let it go, and you just know you let it go. Never, even if you think that bait is balled up, take a chance that it's not balled up. Just take a 10-second chance, work it, and because within 10, 15 seconds, if he doesn't have it then, he's not going to eat it. I'll pretty much guarantee you that from my experience. But in that time, if that bait still works decent, you just shake it and kind of leave it in one spot, maybe where you could pick that fish up again. I'll tell you, A fish that's very, very notorious for that, Gord, you'll probably agree with this, but to a different extent than what I talk is muskies, but smaller muskies. My God, you can catch a muskie on a secondary bite so many times, or a third. The pop it, my God, that must have been a muskie. All of a sudden, he's there again. Oh, you know what I mean? So many times I've done that with 10, 12-pound muskies. It's crazy.
Pete, you will not believe this. So last Thursday, Liam and I are out fishing.
Oh, this is a good story.
No, but this is not scripted.
Okay.
I did not know you were going to say what you just said.
Okay.
So we go to our last spot coming home, and it's one of my favorite all-time spots. We're cutting across over the reef, and we got two rods out. One's mine, one's his. I'm trolling the rods. I'm trolling. So I said, listen, he's home from college. I said, you can have both rods. I'll run the boat. My rod goes off. He grabs, I missed it. And I keep trolling, and within 30 seconds, his rod goes off, and he got the fish. And I'll guarantee that fish hit me first and then hit him.
Yeah,
for sure.
It happens quite a bit with two guys in the boat.
Sure.
It happens a lot. And it happens with multiple species. Pete and I had a similar experience with speckled trout, where one got picked up, set the hook, and it was there, then it was gone, and then like a split second after, it had to be the same fish, right over to the next rod, pick that one up and hit it too. And so it happens quite a bit.
Yeah, when they get aggressive, it's crazy. When fish get aggressive, it's not what people think. Like both you guys said, they don't know it's an angler up there. They bit it to begin with. You think they bit it because they know it's an angler? No, they didn't know it was an angler up there. They thought it was food.
Let me throw this at you. And now we're getting one-dimensional again because we're talking crayfish. But I was so intrigued with this video because it's kind of changed the way I think about crayfish fishing. Why then are we so, I think, overdoing the soft plastics when it comes to crayfish? Why aren't we doing, based on what I saw on this video, that was not a soft, cuddly little crayfish that smallmouth was trying to eat. That was a spiny, biting, hard, hurting experience for that smallie. Why aren't we doing the same thing? Why aren't we using hard baits for what we would normally use a soft bait for? I'm not talking running crankbaits all the time, but if we're bottom bouncing or dragging soft baits, well, Pete, the St. Lawrence River, where we overthink it, right? And why aren't we using hard baits so that when that fish picks it up, when it's soft, like the soft plastics that we use that are imitation crayfish, I would think that fish knows, ooh, something's not right here. Well,
not always though, Anne.
I was just about to say.
When it sheds this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like right now, mid-September for about 3 weeks, from mid-September almost to the end of October, the crayfish molt, and everybody knows they're molting. That is the time, and even the crayfish know. And so you get rusties like we've got here on Lake of the Woods, and they disappear. They know they are more vulnerable than they've ever been. Wow. And they go into the cracks and the crevices and they start hiding. And the other thing that's really, really important, we put radio transmitters when I was with M&R here, and we tracked our smallmouth. We did what Ridgway did for 3 to 5 years on a daily basis, and they travel together. If they can, they hunt in packs. And the reason, Ange, they hunt in packs is to do exactly what you're talking about. One fish will come in on those crayfish, and so they rear up with their claws, and the other one comes in behind and sucks them in. They want to eat them tail first. They don't eat them claw first. And it's amazing to see a school of smallmouth. They're like fighter pilots all coming in, and that crayfish is doing everything it can until one of them gets, he exposes himself to someone from behind. And so it's why it's lights out when we can find those 3, 4, 5, those pods. Then you throw that bait in, and it's lights out.
Yeah. That's interesting. Wow. That is crazy how fish can think, like, you know, I mean, how they can use their instinct and know that this is not good, but that is good.
Exactly. Well, Pete, you've been bitten on the mouth how many times? You realize I better eat this guy from the tail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I got to tell you one other quick story about that muskie, though. And because I know we've talked many, many times about Solunar tables. And for the past 3 years now, I've been trying to document every time we go out. Sometimes I check before we go, and sometimes, and I know we've talked about this. Anyway, when Liam and I went out that day, I forgot to look at the Solunar table. And we got into some gorgeous pike and some gorgeous muskies. And I looked at my watch, and it was 4:45 when I looked at my watch when he landed that big muskie. I got home that night, turned on the Muskie Hunter app for muskies, and guess what time the peak was?
4:45.
4:46. I was 1 minute. Now you tell me that's a coincidence.
No, it's not.
Wow. That is awesome.
We talked about this. I mean, it's no coincidence whatsoever. You know,
Nope.
obviously, as anglers, most of us don't have the luxury of putting ourselves in those prime locations at the right time with all the right conditions. But when we do, inadvertently, we have our best outing for sure.
And for sure, Ange, you're absolutely right on the condition. If there's no fish there, it does not matter what the Solunar tape. You can't catch what's not there. But if you go to your best spot at the best times, you are upping your odds, increasing your chances of catching fish so much.
Yeah, without
For
question.
sure.
But having said that, we're all going to go out fish next week without paying a whole lot of attention to that, right? We're going to
We'll do like Gordy does. We just go out fishing and then look at the time when you come home. Oh, that was good. Yeah, thank you.
But guys, if you do go out and you see that, you know, today, and it was moonrise was 4:46 that day, and we caught that fish at 4:45. So if the day you go out, it says your peak and moonrise is at 3:25 this afternoon, all I would say is go to your best spot, and you'll fish it so much better. And if there's anything there, you'll have the best odds of catching them.
Beautiful.
We've ignored these wonderful people that are sitting here watching this stuff. We get so greedy sometimes. Mike, why don't we get a couple of questions going for Gord so that we don't keep him up all night? He's got to be in bed. He was supposed to be in bed a half hour ago.
I'm an hour behind you.
True, you are. Yeah. By the way, Calvin made a good point here about just to keep that one up there, Mike. Calvin says that's why fish are called brain food. They're smart.
There's a really good question. What size weight bottom bouncer would you start with? And it all depends on the depth. And here's a great rule: 10 feet, 1 ounce, 20 feet, 2 ounce, 30 feet, 3 ounce, 40 feet, 4 ounces. Now, it's speed dependent, but just remember 10, 1, 22, 33, and that's really, really accurate for bottom bouncing, pulling spinner rigs and slow death. It really keeps you you control about 0.75 to 0.9, maybe 1 mile an hour, but 1 ounce, 10 feet, 2 ounces, 20, 3 ounces, 30, and always go just a little bit heavier rather than a little bit lighter.
Good point. And I'll just carry on that a little bit. If your line angle is like way back, your bouncer is too light, folks. Get that line angle so it's like a nice 45 or even less than that. Just about below the boat fast. Get it down there quick, and then let it just work close to you. That's the way you look at a bouncer. If it's way back there, it's too light.
And when it's a way back, Pete, what does everybody do? They feed out more line.
Exactly.
It's a vertical presentation, and
it really is.
Right, we've kind of lost touch with that. It's not a horizontal presentation. You want horizontal, then start casting stuff out there. Throw some floating repellers out behind the boat trolling. But no, it's vertical and as close as you could possibly get. Now the bait choice makes a big difference in some cases too, Gord. So you got to experiment. I think the best way is what Pete just said though, and that is just look at it. If it's not almost vertical, now you need more weight, or you need to slow down. Maybe your drift is too fast. Maybe whatever the conditions just aren't right for that particular weight. at that point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. 45 though, Pete, I agree 100%. I want to see my baits going 45 degree, and that usually means I'm trolling about 7.5, 8.8 miles an hour, and I'll beef up the weight so I can always stay on that angle, and I'm touching bottom very infrequently. It's called a bottom bouncer, but you don't want to be dragging bottom. You want to be touching every so often. Hit the free spool button, you drop that. Oh, there it is again. Pull it back up. So your bait's always running about 8 to 15 inches off the bottom.
Yep. What we got else there?
Solunar table, you guys keep referencing. Do you have a link, or is this something we need to purchase?
Yep, I have there's 2 free apps, but one of them is Jim Sarrick's, especially for muskies. And the reason I like it, it's called MHTV. That's actually Musky Hunter TV app. Just go on the App Store, MHTV Solunar app, and it's amazing. And the reason I like it allows you to dial in your lake. So it depends, Central Time, Eastern Time. You can dial in Bay of Quinte. You can put Lake Ontario, Rice Lake, Georgian Bay, Lac Sewell, Lake of the Woods, and it's free. And that's even better.
That's the reason in itself.
Absolutely.
That's the only reason right there, boys. It's free.
What else you got, Mikey?
How about I was just about to say, that's a good one right there.
Have you ever heard of anyone ever fizzing crappie? Wow.
A long time ago, I will be honest, I have tried. I hate fizzing. It's hard to find a natural resource agency that will suggest you do it. It's like getting the bends as a diver and going into the hospital, having a doctor stick a needle and think that you can pull. It just doesn't work that way. Now, with crappies, there's a tool. And Pete, you talked about one last week, and I talked about there's a tool you can buy. It's made by a company called Rock Lease out of, I think it's California, and it was made for rockfish in the Pacific. And you can release them down to 300 feet. I've got 2 or 3 of these, keep them in the boat. They work amazingly well for crappies. And as soon as you bring them up, you put it on the lip and you put it back down over the side. It's got a weight attached to it. You go down to the bottom and hold it for a second or two. You can actually feel the crappie struggling to get off, and then you snap it and it just releases it off its lip. And I'm sure those fish survive. But the fella that asked that question raised a really good point. When they get to 25, 30 feet, you should keep what you're catching. And then once you've got enough, then move and fish for shallower fish. As a general rule, pulling them out of deep water crappies is tough.
So let me throw this one at you. If, you just made a comparison to getting the bends as a human being. And I know you were just using that in general because the bends is a totally different problem than what we're faced with when we're releasing deep water fish. But if it is the swim bladder that's affected by bringing these fish up too quickly, and we see it, rock bass is a great example because by the time they come up to the surface, their bladder's sticking out of their mouth, so it's very visible. Perch, but in most other fish, it's not quite as evident, right? But what happens is that bladder, because the fish is coming, basically decompressing, right? There's less pressure on them, so that air that's trapped in there expands. Right, and that bladder becomes 2x, 3x, 5x the size that it normally should be. If in fact this device can get them back down to whatever that depth is, 200 feet, 100 feet, 80 feet, technically it should be okay.
Absolutely,
because that bladder is going to decompress or compress when it's going back down, and it's going to go back to its normal shape, which means that the fish should be okay. Right.
Absolutely right, and 100%. The problem with yellow perch and crappies and rock bass and some of the other isn't necessarily that they've got the swim bladder. They don't have the power to offset that balloon. And
right.
So when you attach them to the release mechanism and put them down, you've aided them in
Right.
getting back down, where the pressure now compensates, the swim bladder contracts, and they
Right.
swim away.
Yeah, so it should work every time, technically. I mean, it's not like they've got oxygen in their blood and that those bubbles have increased in size and they've damaged the brain and all those things that are associated with humans and the bends and diving. That's not the case with a fish. If we can get him back to where he was, that bladder is going to go back to the size it was before we made contact with him. So this device should be perfect every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And M&R, when I was with M&R, a lot of the bios, they had their own release mechanism. And it was just a coat hanger, a bent coat hanger with about 6 inches of weight on it. And they would actually use it for lake trout, even though lake trout are a ductless species and they can compensate and you'll hear them gurgling. Sometimes you do want to help them get back down. And they would simply put the coat hanger with the weight in and send them right back down to 90 feet, pull back up, and the coat hanger comes out of the mouth and the lake trout swims away.
Wow.
It's something that I learned, and I think it might have been Gord, you and I, that talked about this, and I was using one last year. It's the one I was using is called a sequelizer, and it has 3 different settings. You can have it set it for different release points, and it releases on its own, believe it or not. It's a pretty cool little machine. But if you catch a walleye, let's say a walleye in 35 to 40 feet of water, you should try and release that fish in about that same depth, even though you caught him in 135 feet of water or something like that. You should try and get that fish. If he's in the live well, he's already got the bends, he's going to be upside down. It'll stay alive, no problem. It still breathes in the live well. It just can't upright itself. Okay, this is because of that, like the boys are talking about, a great big balloon in its belly. So you go over into the shallower water, you find that 35 to 40 foot range that these fish are in, drop it down to there, because the reason you do that is because the fish will release off that, and yeah, it'll be nice. But if he releases in 150 feet, he could sink because he's got too much decompression or compression opposite, sink down to 135 feet of water, and it's probably going to die. So if you do that, it'll just sit on the bottom at 35 feet of water and has a great chance of survival in that kind of depth. So just keep that kind of stuff in mind. If you use, I mean, not very many people are going to use this stuff, but they are very good tools and they are available. So, you know, if people here are watching, you should really, if you're fishing deep water fish, you should try it.
It's so inexpensive. I think they're $30.
Yeah.
$35. They last a lifetime.
Perfect answer to all that, especially if it's walleye. Use the frying pan technique. Work for the time. Fillet that bugger up, put him in the frying pan, and he's good to go.
What if it's bigger in the slot that you have to release?
I know.
There you go.
It makes sense. No, it's great. That's why I think it'd be wonderful to get a little more information on those things, because it should be 100%, unless you've harmed the fish, damaged it in other ways, other than the bladder problem, that thing should work great. And you know, as responsible anglers, we should probably all have one of those.
Oh, absolutely, Ange. For $30-$35 lasts a lifetime. Amazingly, we don't carry them more often.
Yeah, a lot of the guides nowadays, the Great Lakes guides, the Bay of Quinte guides for sure, Scott Walcott, those guys, they all have them on their boat, and that's they show people, they literally show the customers, hey guys, look at this, we got this is a 10-pounder, but we want to release them, and watch this. You know, it's pretty cool. And you can see it on your fish finder too. You can watch the stuff happen on your fish finder. That's
you feel them, Pete, when you put them over the side, even a crappie. When I put those crappies down at 25, 28 feet, all of a sudden it's like you go, oh my God, and he's struggling to, and then you pop it once and away he swims.
Swims away. Yeah.
Hello, outdoorsy girl. She just says, hello, boys. They're having a supper at her house.
Well, then she didn't see your video earlier, obviously, did she then?
No, and let's not tell her, because we don't want to ruin her something. What else we got, Mike?
How about one more question, and then we probably got, I think we got a waiting room full, so.
Length of leader on a
Great question. Great question.
I'll tell you why this is such a good question, because I've been in the boat with guys, and you laugh, but we've all been there, and it's the way we all started. Number one, you can't make the leader longer than your rod, because once you reel, the bottom bouncer up to the tip. And I've seen guys the first time get in the boat and they'll say, ooh, you know, the fish are really finicky. I got to use fluoro. I'm going to put a 2 or 3 foot, a 15, 19 foot leader. And you go, okay, now you got a big fish. How do I net this? So the length of your rod. So if you're fishing with a 7 foot rod, a 6 foot leader is by far the general rule. And remember that fluorocarbon sinks, mono floats. And if you're fishing a really snaggy bottom, I actually like a monofilament leader for that very purpose. So I make my own spinner rigs and slow death rigs, and I'll make a combo of light mono, medium mono, and then medium fluorocarbon and light fluorocarbon as well. And you don't get snagged. You don't pick up that moss with mono that you do with fluorocarbon.
You know, we've been preaching that now for I don't know how many years about the personalities of mono versus fluorocarbon and why you should use one or the other. And that point you just made right now should be embedded into everybody's psyche 100% of the time, that they're making a leader up for deep water fishing and topwater fishing. Both those two extremes is where the principle of mono versus fluoro, et cetera, really comes into play. And it never dawned on me that you might want to use mono in some cases when you're scratching the bottom, if you just want to keep your bait just slightly higher, not a lot, but slightly higher than with fluoro. So that's a great point and a great tip for everybody to remember. For sure.
And on a 6 foot leader edge with the bottom bouncer 8 inches off the bottom, something as simple as switching to mono keeps your bait clean.
Yeah.
My buddy Mikey Burris still flips with 25-pound mono. My God, I watched that guy in action the other day. And you know what? We're all laughing, but he's fishing right under the boat, directly under the boat, and he's setting the hook harder than Hulk Hogan set the hook. You know what I mean? So he probably that shock absorber in that mono was helping him, because he just under the armpit and drills him every time, and he rarely loses a fish. He hooks almost every one. So there's still use for mono out there.
Yeah, we didn't compensate when we made that switch years ago. You know, from graphite or from fiberglass to graphite, and then mono to fluoro. We didn't do all the calculations, and I know that we've all gone through that period of time where you kept asking, why am I breaking these fish off? Why are these fish breaking off? Well, that's why, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Didn't compensate it enough.
Yeah.
The 4 biggest muskies I have ever landed in my life, 3 of them won the Molson Big Fish Award in Ontario. One of them was the biggest I have ever, 57.5. Every single one was on monofilament, and I honestly believe to this day that mono fishes baits differently than braid and fluorocarbon. And you will still catch me many, many days trolling a full mono for rod for muskies.
You know what? That's a good subject. We could go for a good half hour to an hour on that. We'll leave that. Let's keep this subject in mind, boys, because that's a good one. I think everybody would be really interested in that. You know, line is a big question for everybody, a question mark for everybody. That's a good one. So let's keep that one in the back pocket for sure.
I just want to end it off by saying there is no perfect line for all situations, right? And that's the thing to keep in mind. That's why it would be a good subject for us to spend an hour on, because there is one perfect one for everything. But that's the importance of having that arsenal, that you've got the best possible tool for every situation at hand. And line is perfect example of that.
Guys are now down in your neck of the woods, maybe in some of the waters, but guys and gals are switching to fluorocarbon many times when they shouldn't. And the downsides of fluorocarbon, especially knots, for the average recreational angler, is a mistake, because they can tie good uni knots, clinch knots, Palomars with mono, and they do it with fluorocarbon and break off. And there was no reason to switch to fluoro in the first case.
Yeah.
We'll save it.
Yes.
On that note, we're going to introduce, tell folks where they can catch you during the week, buddy, when you're not on the show.
Yep, outdoorcanada.ca, Fish in Canada as well, and Ontario Tourism. And send me messages on Facebook, direct message me. I probably get 20, 40 a day.
I believe it. Those fish, that giant muskie we just saw Liam holding, and he had a twin pike, if I'm not mistaken.
The pike, the pike was a 40-incher. There it is there. We measured that was 40 inches. And the muskie we figured was about 31, 32 pounds.
Beautiful.
Good for
Great
you.
reading week right there. That's a perfect reading week.
That's what he came home for reading week, and he read the weather forecast and the Solunar table.
That's it. What else do you need to read?
That needs.
There's nothing else to read.
All right, my friend, we'll let you go. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Thanks, and take care, Ange. Good luck on your foot.
Thanks, buddy. That's the doc, and that was a little fish talk. Man, oh man, I just, the thing is, you can do 5 hours with Gordy.
Guy Sean says I could watch this all day long. LOL. Yeah, buddy, we're as interested as you are, Sean, in this stuff. We just get into this mode, into this zone, and it's not just for everybody else. We it is for everybody else, but we love it too. So just to let you know.
So we spent a bit of time there on walleye and talked a little bit about bass, and we talked a little bit about muskie, which brings us to this week's Fish in Canada poll question. We asked you, what is your favorite species of fish to catch? And before you put it up, I want all of you that are watching right now, you know what you put down, or if you didn't put it down, you think you know what others put down. Try and guess along with us. I am going to say, I'm going to take a shot at this right now. I'm going to say that number one, man, it's hard for me. I'm going to say number one is still walleye. I think it's still king. And I think bass is probably right up there, right next to it. That's my prediction. How about yours, Pete?
Well, I've always said in my mind the walleye, from my growing up, walleye was, but that might be a biased thing because I remember you and your brother used to correct me, saying, no, Peter, the stats say trout are the number one in Canada. But I think, to me now, hands down, walleye are by far the most popular of all across the country.
Let's find out what the audience said. Walleye number one.
Yep. Walleye 41%.
And trout has moved down to number 3.
Yeah, so there you go. Bass and trout are close, but in our poll, but bass are more popular in our poll. That's craziness.
And by the way, that's almost 1,500 people. That's
a good poll. That's awesome.
So walleye number one and bass closing in on that, which is right. And it's funny because both those species, we're hearing about more and more about them spreading across the country. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that if we had heard that there were bass and walleye in BC, we just said, no, there's not.
Well, we said that a lot. We used to say that all the time.
We know that that's not the case, right?
Yeah.
East Coast, they got bass now. They got muskie. So those fish are starting to spread right across the country. And I think as more and more Canadians start sampling them, pretty hard to beat both of those. One for recreational purposes, just for an all-out enjoyment of fishing, and that's bass. And the other one, you would not want to catch a tastier fish on the planet than walleye. So that makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's good. I like that. The surprising one to me is the 22 bass versus 20 trout. That's the bass are pulling it up, buddy. Pretty soon, bass going to be number one in Canada.
I'm going to make an assumption our next guest is ready to join us.
Yeah, I think he's been here for a bit.
We're running late. He has a Ph.D. in fisheries biology, an underwater photographer, and a scientific illustrator. So when you watch this interesting video that we're about to show you, you're going to wonder, why is he saying those things about not being an artist?
I'm not an artist. I would get lost in a crowd if I had to draw a woman sitting nude on a chair and it was in some art class where we were using charcoal or graphite pencils. That's not really my forte, but I have spent so long doing this, so many hours, so many years, that I challenge anyone in the world to come close to being able to do what I do. It's very much that Darwinian sort of cataloging everything, but also understanding the nuances in the variation, like, a brown trout living in a mountain lake in North Africa, in Morocco, looks very different from a brown trout, a sea-run brown trout coming back from the Atlantic Ocean into a river in Scotland. But talk is cheap. You got to show it, and this is where where I put my time in, so that people understand that. My interests are to describe diversity in our fish fauna, and then based on what I could do, it's up to other people to take conservation measures and steps, etc. That's not really my role. It's nice to know that even in this somewhat old category of art, which had its very 18th century origins of trying to show what animals in our world look like, I like to think I represent a culmination or the zenith of what that could be. And here we are, of all places, Northwest Territories, and I'm doing this. Not only local fish diversity, but fishes of the world.
Welcome to the program. The guy who's not an artist, Paul Vecsei. Good morning, good afternoon, or evening. What time is it up there in the Great North, anyways?
5:21.
Oh boy. Okay.
Oh, he's good. He's just starting this evening. He's good. We're way ahead of him. How are you, Paul?
Good. You guys?
Good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
doing well.
I think we inadvertently ran into you, I'm going to say about a decade ago. We were fascinated with the DFO illustrations of some of our freshwater species in Canada. And I believe they were yours. They made a big poster one year, about 10 years ago. Does that ring a bell at all?
It does, but any poster where they had all the fish together, they weren't mine. And I know who did it.
Okay.
And anyway, so there's a long story behind that.
Okay.
And that woman who did that poster, it was Fishes of the North or Northwest Territories. She actually did a book, which I helped her. I provided her the source material on fishes of something like Arctic Canada or fishes of Nunavut, which came out not long ago. So, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Anyways, your stuff is just breathtaking.
Mm-hmm.
To describe it, how you could say you're not an artist is totally beyond me. You're more than just an artist. But I think I do understand what you're trying to say, and that is that this artistry that you have is one dimensional in that it's about fish.
Yeah.
And about this particular type of subject.
The thing is, even in fish art, there can be some creativity. And what I do is kind of dry in that it's not a fish taking a fly and an underwater perspective of that, or it's simply a very technical, scientific illustration. To give you an example, like when I was a kid, I used to love drawing side views of airplanes and showing the different very exact the shapes, so the proportions were exact, and then the camouflage I always found interesting. Well, it sort of transfers well into fish. I have these very technically what we call meristic and morphometrically accurate. So meristics are the countable features like number of fin rays, number of scales on the lateral line, and then the morphometrics, which is a proportional relationship of the parts, that's all very accurate. And it's not exactly what I would say creative art, but how I do it and how I get there, one can argue, is in fact quite creative. And by definition, maybe it is art because I never know in advance. There's no blueprint to what I do. I never know what it's going to end up looking like when I start a project. And I'm either surprised, pleasantly or not, or sometimes even blown away, but often disappointed. And
you answered one question I had for you. I was going to say, did you draw as a kid? And but you said with airplanes, so I'm sure you did it with everything else. Do you think though that the way you portray your fish is because of your biology background, because that's the way you kind of see and want to see fish and want to display the correct features of all the fish, or is it just the way you draw?
I drew dinosaurs, airplanes. But, even when I started fishing obsessively when I was around 11, 12, really what mattered for me and that gang that we fished in the St. Lawrence back in the day was photographing the fish. Sort of, in other words, recording everything we caught. And we kept photo albums of every trip. And I just liked, it wasn't enough to have a photo of a brown, but you know how male browns at spawning time, they all look different. Well, I was recording that, how yellow are some, how orange are others. Some only have black dots, some have red and black dots. So all of that we were sort of cataloging as naturalists, but we didn't know it. We were just kids into fishing.
Mhm.
And maybe this is just that maturing somewhat.
Right.
So your formal education, you obviously are a biologist, so your interest is in nature and specifically in this case fish.
Yeah.
At what point though did you start finding out that maybe you could draw these things, maybe you could illustrate them, that would further enhance your appreciation of the species?
So remember, all of us know this book, Scott and Crossman, Freshwater Fishes of Canada.
Yeah.
I remember buying that book in Upper Canada Village with a loaf of bread with a friend of mine. And this is back around when it came out, first edition hardcover. And I remember looking through that, being blown away by those, it's like a stippling black and white technique where they just use a pen and sort of stipple dot the fish, the detail. And I thought, that is so incredible. All the fish that I'm into that most other guys like you aren't, like the red horse, greater red horse, silver red horse, short red, all that stuff was there, plus the stuff we're all into, everything featured. And I started just copying, imitating that. And that eventually got to the level where I was, before doing my master's at University of Guelph, I became, I could say, chief illustrator for a professor who ran a famous science journal on fish. And all my stuff would go to press with articles, with journal articles. So for a while, I was in that very academia realm of fish illustration. And then when I moved up to Yellowknife here in the Northwest Territories in 2006, I started doing color. And also, I kept my science contacts, and I had work with DFO and other federal entities in the US and Canada. And then it sort of took off, where anglers also, in the last few years, have really taken a fancy for this kind of stuff. So, yeah, it seems to have an appeal.
Where does most of your research come from? Is it fishing and catching fish? Is it diving? I know you like to put a suit on and go underwater and take photography and video of fish. Where do you get most of your research done?
So now this would be interesting, I guess, to your younger viewers. When you go into fisheries science, in my case, I did a master's in ichthyology, so the study of fishes, pure and simple. But then I did my Ph.D. in fisheries, so more about the exploitation and management of fish stocks. But it doesn't mean you're necessarily a researcher. So in my case, we did at times do research here on Great Slave Lake, but a lot of the daily routine is assessment type work, where some people like it, some don't, but it's an excuse, or it's a way for me to get out on the water. So by doing this survey type work, or monitoring, as we say, it gets me out there for a week or two at a time. And it's sort of that keeps that interaction that I need to have with the fish world. And when you're a guy who really knows his fish like I do, very weird and interesting discoveries are almost guaranteed to happen, especially up here, where it's like the final frontier in the world of fish biology.
Now you're in Northwest Territories. Is that where you've done most of your work, or have you been worldwide, or where else have you done, your biology work?
I mean, I've traveled for sturgeon work. I did my master's on sturgeon and my PhD. So I was in Russia for a while, throughout Europe, Austria, Hungary, and in the US. I spent a lot of time. I finished grad school in the US, in the deep South in Georgia at UGA. So yeah, I've been all over. But my Great Lakes. I'm a Great Lakes guy. I lived in Montreal growing up, so St. Lawrence is where I really got into fish, and then I did my Ph.D. work on Lake Michigan. So a lot of time in the Great Lakes. I'm into big freshwater systems, and luckily now being up here, well, I've got Great Slave Lake, which is like what Lake Ontario was 500 years ago.
Right, right.
By the way, before I forget, you're up in Yellowknife. There was a great operation out of Yellowknife years ago that we shot a Fish in Canada episode with. It was a ship called the Norwetta. Is it still around? Have you heard of it?
Was it a DFO ship or a Coast Guard or what?
It was a decommissioned. It was a decommissioned freighter or an oil
barge, maybe
barge that turned into a floating fishing lodge, and it would take people all around the East Arm and on it, and they would be dragging tin boats, behind it, and then you'd steam all night while you're sleeping. Wake up in the morning, and you're in this most pristine part of area that you could ever think you fish all day, and then that night you come back on board, and while you're having dinner, the ship steams to another location. You wake up in the morning, and you're in another place. It was just paradise.
You must be so much older than I am. That's all I can say.
I love it.
How long ago was that, Pete?
Oh my God, buddy, that's back before I was working with you full time. So I mean, that's 20 plus.
But anyways, a great experience. It's fabulous. Now, there was two things that I saw in the video that I find intriguing, difficult to comprehend. But I made a note here to ask you about them. And the comment that you made that struck me kind of odd was that artists or people who do illustrations or people that do what you do, they're not gifted. They're just capable of doing that because of hard work.
Yep.
I wanted to challenge you on that because, and I keep going back to saying you are an artist. Don't tell me you're not an artist. There is no way I could spend 1,000,000 hours trying to do a brown trout illustration. I could never do it like you do.
Absolutely, you could. Absolutely. And that's the cop-out. And lucky for me, you guys are all cop-outs in that sense. And my only advantage over you is my willpower. It's nothing else, just willpower.
I love it.
And look at all this stuff. It's just methodology and sticking to doing it and not giving up and spending the time. It's very little else, and people just don't understand it. They get frightened when they see something like that. It's almost terrifying for them. The level of detail, and especially what you're looking at now, you should see it's drawn like 2-3 feet long with the actual original illustration to get all that detail in, and it's daunting for them. But it's willpower and sticking to it and knowing what you're doing, which of course comes with all that time that I spend doing it. But I'm no master in the technique of using oil-based pencils or wax watercolor. This is just I barely get by. But
how long does it take you to do like that right there, that Chinook illustration, that double fish? How much time would you put in on that right there to get that done?
So each one is like it would be a week to 2 weeks for a drawing. And I have here, just to give you a sense of the size, I can show quickly, if you can pan, your technician can, So this is one that I recently finished.
A char.
Arctic char, spawning color. So you get an idea here of what's involved, in the level of detail that goes into it. So all these scales, every single scale is there, etched out from the pencil layer. It's pretty complicated, actually.
That is incredible.
Here's a grayling. I'll quickly just show this last one to the
Oh
audience.
my God, look at this. Look at that.
Just finished this one too.
That is so
close. You can see all the details there. So, luckily, I found a niche where not many people, there's a lot of people who do birds and a lot of people who do flowers. But when it comes to fish and this kind of very scientific, technical type of fish drawing, I'm in, very few people in terms of company out there in the world.
Which brings me to the other thing that I found kind of odd, the statement that you made, and you said that even though you're not a very good artist, and if you had to draw, a nude figure of a woman sitting on a chair, you can do it. But
Yeah.
when it comes to illustrating fish, you may be the best in the world.
Well,
It's a great. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing you. That's a very strong comment.
Yeah, and I'll back it by saying I challenge anyone out there to match the more recent stuff that I've done. When I initially said that, now when I look at those drawings, I cringe. But now, and people can look at my Instagram, I'm Fish as Art on Instagram, or look me up, my name on Facebook. I post regularly and let them judge. But I'm putting it out there. Knock me off my pedestal.
I love it. I love that. That's so awesome.
You use as reference? What's your main source of reference? Like I've seen you do fish, the same species from 5, 6 different locations that all look different. How do you get that information? What do you use for reference?
Okay, so good question. And this is often what artists who are into fish ask me. Ideally, nothing beats having a museum specimen, and then with the calipers, you can do the measurements and transfer it onto your paper. Or next best thing is in a museum setting, take the photos that you need and then work with that. But a lot of times what I do, and to have the life colors, for example, when we were on the Tree River getting those gigantic char, we have like a special cradle built with a mesh so the fish slightly sinks. So the perspective, the side view is truly a good side view where the heavier parts sink a little further down into the mesh. And then we photograph it and then do close-ups as well and everything. And that is a good source to then work from. And, often in this day and age, the fish we're sampling can be very rare or unique where we have to let them go. And we simply take a genetic sample, quickly clip, and then a photo or two, and back they go. So even those fish, I can, immortalize and illustrate, and for the sake of science or for anglers or whoever's interested, have a documented good rendering, a scientific illustration done. So the sources, could be many.
When you take pictures out there, though, or not, is not every camera kind of got different colorations to the pictures? You know what I mean? How accurate are the cameras out there, or do you have a super accurate camera that you use that is by far the best of them all?
I have very good cameras, and I don't use wide angle. So the trick is when we do the char, for example, on the Tree River, we have to stand on like 2 coolers or a big rock and be very high up to get a non-distorted side view of the fish.
Right.
But also in Photoshop, I can correct the white balance, is what you're referring to. And often different cameras have different shifts in the warmth or, of the colors and things. So that can be corrected. But believe it or not, and this is worth noting to all you guys out there doing this, if ever you're taking side views of a fish for me to draw, the iPhone now is the most accurate when not tinkered with. The colors are very, very accurate. Few cameras, it gives other cameras a run for their money now, and that does the trick. And the resolution is immense for the files, and I put mine in non-wide angle setting, and I get by with it.
It's funny he says that, Ange, because on our articles on the web, we have all the people that write in on them. One guy wrote in today, and about having a phone with him. He doesn't want his phone because he wants isolation in the fish. I said, and one of the points was, buddy, the cameras are so good on those phones nowadays that I compare them to my DSLR. I got a Nikon DSLR, and why do you need to bring this camera with you when you got a phone with you? It does everything else and it takes pictures. It's crazy.
It's primarily for the camera that I have an iPhone 11 Pro. It's above all the camera.
Paul,
Okay.
we've got a lot of folks wanting to ask you questions, so why don't we cut loose on a few of them, Mike, and put them
Yeah,
up?
and before we go, also don't forget to show some of the underwater chum salmon shots or that I sent, because some people are actually more interested in the underwater photography than the fish drawing stuff. So,
Oh,
anyway, so
you're underwater.
questions.
It's phenomenal. Paul, what are you doing with this work? Are they for
Are they for sale? Yes, they are, but there's a very long waiting list at this point. So if people want to contact me, they can on Facebook or on Instagram, Fish as Art on Instagram, or my name. They'll find me. And I mean, I'm booked solid for a while. Remember, I have a day job. I don't do this around the clock. I'm a fish biologist. I do fisheries work from morning till 5 o'clock. I clock in, I clock out. So the drawing is now really relegated to evenings and weekends, or when I'm off for whatever reason. So yeah, I mean, and also the price range. People are always wondering. They don't get it. These aren't prints. What I do is I sell originals, and the originals go for anywhere from 300 to 800, depending on the size and complexity. But
fascinating? What else we got? Oh, would you do a trophy catch for a client, Bob
that's
Hatchie?
that's what usually I get. So sometimes guys are helpful in that they even have photos of a particular fish they want drawn, and they send the shots, and I work from there. The problem with that is often the shots are very distorted, quite bad, but I can still
Work with it.
work with it and come up with something pretty good. And then there are some guys who really get it, and when they catch the fish, they have it down in the shallow water in the pebbles, next to the net and the rod, and they move up quite high and take a distortion-free shot, and they send that, and that's ideal. But yeah, usually when it's a commission for a person, they have something in mind. Now, that being said, I regularly post just out of the blue weird brown trout from all over the world, and there is always, especially within the science community, someone who wants to have a brown trout from Afghanistan. Believe it or not, imagine there are brown trout all over, North Africa, Morocco, and people are interested in that. So
we've talked about brown trout a few times. Is that your favorite species of freshwater fish?
I've probably drawn. I've done over 100 brown trout illustrations over the years, and to me, nothing's more interesting in how diversified they've, you guys think of brown trout in the Great Lakes. Well, that's an import. You should see what they look like and what they evolved into in their native land, not just Europe, but places like Turkey. You want to see diversity in brown trout? Every one of those mountain streams in Turkey would blow your mind. Or Iran, in Iran, imagine.
Wow.
Really?
So Sicily, Italy, the Balkans, all over. That's where the real deal is. If you're into brown trout, well, there's a world out there to explore.
They used to be called. We used to hear them. I used to hear them referred to as German brown trout. German brown. Is that where they came from originally? Germany?
Well, you care, and we know that because yes, what you catch at in Port Credit or these areas in the Great Lakes are either from Scotland or Germany, but regardless, they're what we call Atlantic strain. So it's one very interesting form of in that lineage of brown trout. You have multiple strains. There could be Mediterranean, there could be Danubian from the Danube.
Wow.
And you guys are only familiar with Atlantic. So whether you're fishing in Montana or the Great Lakes or the St. Lawrence, it's all basically either German or Scottish, in other words, Atlantic strain.
Wow. Interesting.
Kelvin wants to know, what medium do you primarily work with?
Good question. And this surprises many people. They all think it's a painting. It's in fact pencil, color pencil, wax-based or oil-based, or a combination of both. So, it's hard to imagine that with using color pencil, you can get such depth and realism. But again, it's knowing how to do it. And that comes with practice.
And when you're the best in the world, you create pieces of art. Because
They're
Okay.
very, very good scientific illustrations.
Paul,
True they are.
joining us tonight, and we've got to move along. No, we're running way late. Can't say enough for how much we appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. I hope some of the viewers today were inspired and
Look at
can
this.
follow you and find out. There's some beautiful images there.
That one you're showing now made National Geographic's photo of the day years ago.
Wow.
And so it should have. That was gorgeous, buddy. Oh my God.
Those were ciscos and lake whitefish.
Nice.
This is Paul Vecsei. Check him out. We'll post him up on our site as well. Paul, thank you very much, my friend.
Take care.
Thanks, Paul.
Bye-bye.
Wow, I wish I could say I wasn't an artist like that. Wouldn't that be?
But I like his balls though, because he says he's the best in the world, so that's good. You know what I mean? So
I wanted to bring it up because he made two comments there that really caught me. That was he's not very good at what he does, but he's the best in the world at what he does. So
he's a very interesting man, as a lot of artists are. So
that fish depiction there has made me hungry. Time to consume, shall we?
oh, pardon.
Oh, there you go.
What's going on, buddy?
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you?
Good.
Are we running too late? We're running a bit late. Sorry about that, but
That's okay. I was eating dinner and watching. It was great.
okay.
Excellent. That guy's an artist, eh? Those paintings and those pictures.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Some of the stuff, like it was incredible just looking at it. It was like
The time
very,
he said,
very down.
He says a couple of weeks. Well, you know, if he's working, then he's every night and every weekend he's putting in those little wee pencil marks and all that stuff. He has to be. He can't do anything else. You know, the scale, every dot, every line. It's crazy. So
Crazy.
Well, he may say he's not an artist, but I say you are an artist for sure. Herring fish. What do you got for us tonight?
Well, I'll tell you something. We had a lot of fun. We did a little bit of cooking in the basement, and you know, with these times, it's crazy. So we're just finding anywhere where we can cook, and we fired up some beautiful stuff. We started with something different. I wanted to think outside the box, and we did a pasta dish, and the pasta dish had some really nice halibut, a little bit of lobster, some Ontario heirloom cherry tomatoes. It was really, really nice. We put it together, and I think people will really, really enjoy this dish.
All right, let's have a look.
But I'll tell you what, I'm still gonna press. It's gonna be fun. Let's get right to it. So let's go over the ingredients today. We have garlic, heavy cream. You're gonna need heavy cream for this dish. So if you're on a diet, please don't try this at home. Fresh Parmesan cheese. Can't have pasta without cheese. I'm Italian. Imagine coming to the table without cheese and there's pasta. We ain't eating. Heirloom cherry tomatoes. We got different types of tomatoes, different colors. It's gonna look amazing. The main event right here. These are homemade lobster stuffed agnolottis. Last thing, but not least, is the halibut. Again, we got fresh PEI halibut to go with the lobster. We're gonna put it all together. Let's get fired up. First thing I wanna do is get this pan really, really hot. It's really important. What we're gonna do, again, a little bit of olive oil right into the pan. As that's going, we can start working. First thing, garlic. Just squash that down, simple with your knife. Then chop. You want to mince that garlic nice and fine into the pan, just like so. Next, heirloom cherry tomatoes. Again, all different types of tomatoes. We're gonna cut it up. Let's get these sizzling with the garlic. You're gonna start hearing that pan going any second. Now, once you get this thing going here, now you got to remember, I'm at home in my basement, so the fire alarm goes off. It's not my fault. We're just trying to get fired up down here. Getting all of these tomatoes in with the garlic, really essential. You got to work quick. You could always have this stuff prepared on the side, so that way all you're doing is adding everything into the dish. Obviously, just give that a nice little mix. You're going to see everything come together here. The garlic, the tomatoes. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the heat. Very, very important. You don't want to burn that garlic, okay? Once you get your tomatoes sweating off with the garlic, it's an indication to lower the heat. Now, we're going to let this simmer for a little bit, and let's talk about our next ingredient. We have sambuca. Now, we're going to add a little bit of sambuca. What this is it's an Italian liqueur. It's quite sweet. It's got a little bit of, I guess, a licorice kind of flavor. I'll tell you what, when you combine this with the tomatoes, the garlic, with the fish, it's going to be unbelievable. We're not going to put this in just yet, but while this is going, I just wanted to inform you exactly what we're using here. Now, we got this browning up nice. Let's start with our fish. What I want to do here, very simple. I don't want to cut this paper thin. We actually want to enjoy this fish in the dish. Just like so. Drop it right in. Again, what's happening here is these tomatoes are reducing down. The garlic is cooking. We're adding the fish. And all you want to do is sort of brown it off. Now, if you overcook this fish, what's going to happen is it's going to be quite rubbery. And you don't want that. You want it to be nice and tender. So all we're doing is quickly browning it off. The aroma that's coming out of here is unbelievable. My kids are upstairs doing their homeschooling. They're probably wondering what the heck's going on down here. Well, we're having a party. You can see the tomatoes are starting to wilt. I could smell the halibut. Unbelievable. I think it's about that time we set this place on fire, shall we? Now, don't try this at home if you're not comfortable with flames. Now, obviously, liqueur, vodka, white wine, when you're adding it to a flame, it's going to create a little bit of fire. That's okay. What you want to do is you want to get this going. The alcohol is actually going to burn out. It's going to cook right through. The flame will go down. That's the indication that the alcohol's been literally cooked right through. Once it starts sizzling, boom, we call that flambé. As I'm turning it, you can see the alcohol has already been burned out. As you can see, the alcohol is literally cooked out, no more flame. And you can see this really, really rich color coming out when that sambuca hit. Now what we're gonna do, simply get our heavy cream and add it to the pan. And the color is gonna really come out in this dish when you start mixing those heirloom cherry tomatoes with the cream. Now, if you're into spice, you could always add some pepperoncino, some hot peppers to this. For me, I'm just gonna keep it nice and light. I wanna really, really get that flavor of the fish. Once this comes to a complete boil, we're gonna lower the heat, get it on a simmer. That cream's gonna thicken up. All these flavors are gonna start combining. We have some Parmesan cheese. We have some fresh basil. We're gonna save that to the end. And now we're gonna get to the second part of the main event right here. These are these homemade lobster stuffed agnolottis. As this is starting to simmer, I've already blanched these off. I blanched them off because it's fresh pasta. Only took a couple minutes, that's it. Blanch them off, put them on the side. What's gonna happen? You're gonna drop them in just like so, reduce the heat. And these are actually gonna come right back up to temperature, be nice al dente. That's how I like to eat my pasta, and just sort of mix it through the sauce, just like so. You can actually see the sauce starting to turn a little bit of rosé-ish from those tomatoes. We're going to keep this on a simmer just for a couple minutes. All we want to do is cook through and penetrate right down to that lobster meat so it's nice and hot. We're going to plate this beauty coming right up shortly. Now, when we're plating this pasta, obviously I like to use just a straight up pasta bowl. I would not use a flat plate when you're eating pasta, you're having anything with sauce in it, obviously. Look at the colors of this. The sauce is getting nice and thick, you can see as it stays on. That pasta is literally cooking through. Keep mixing it. Just like so. Right before we plate it, fresh Parmigiano cheese, just like this. I'm gonna save a little bit for the garnish. Let's get that in there. This is gonna help actually thicken the sauce and add a really nice element of saltiness as well. Looks like our pasta is just about done. We'll give it a little mix. Now, very important, you don't have to use fresh pasta. You don't have to use lobster stuffed agnolotti. You can do this with penne. You can do this with linguine. You can do this with anything. You could throw mussels. You could throw shrimp. You could throw whatever you want in this dish. If I would have caught a walleye, that would have been in this dish, period. But today, we got some beautiful halibut, and I'm pretty sure nobody's gonna complain about it. So let's plate these up. We're gonna do them one at a time. Beautiful agnolotti, just like so. I wanna get those cherry tomatoes, all the chunks of halibut. Look at that, absolutely beautiful. Get those colors going. We're gonna garnish some extra sauce. One more, here we go, just like so. Now, that's done. Presentation is everything. We're gonna wipe the rim of the plate. Okay, let this go all over Pete Bowman's face, not on the plate, okay? Fresh basil, so important. This is gonna bring the colors right out. Rough chop is fine, just on top like so. And this is gonna help bring out the color, the aroma. Last but not least, can't have pasta without cheese, just like so. I'm gonna tell you something right here. Might have got skunked on a lake, but I didn't get skunked in my house. This is absolutely beautiful. I'm telling you right now, you serve this at your next dinner party, how easy was that? 5 minutes. I'll tell you right now, you're gonna look like a celebrity in your own house. I'm Chef Antonio, this is Fish du Jour, and I'm telling you right now, it's that easy. Enjoy.
You friggin' clowns.
I wanted to do that,
God.
man. That was
Oh man,
Speaking of
my mouth is
artists,
watering
the
watching
last guy
that.
we just had on there was an artist. Now look what we just saw there. There's no way you can't say that is art, Antonio. That is like, I mean, if it tastes as good as it looks, buddy, that, and I know it does. Oh my God, that was awesome.
So you went out walleye
Yeah.
fishing and you came back with lobster stuffed agnolotti. What's up with that?
Oh,
Well, I wanted to impress you guys. I went out fishing. Me and Daniel, we went out and we tried our luck. It was a slow day. The weather was crap. A lot of excuses I could throw out there, and the whole time I was thinking, I got to catch something. We got to get something for the Fish du Jour, and it was driving me nuts. And I was thinking about it, and I said, you know what? We're gonna do something with lobster. I wanted to do different things as we discussed with Fish du Jour. So I figured, walleye is your typical shore lunch, or it's the go-to for everybody. So thinking about it, and I thought halibut, lobster, thinking of the East Coast, and you know, and like you saw, it took 5 minutes to create that dish, and it's not really hard. And the best thing is there's so many different types of species of fish or seafood you can add to that dish. So it was almost a template, and I think it was easy enough for people to really see how
what
fast
people are
you can
going to
create
learn
that
from
dish
these
special.
segments, Antonio, is that, you know, fish is not something that you cook for hours and hours and hours and get all the flavor and the juices out of. Fish is perfect for just in and out, and that's going to be. I love what you did there in just a short
Absolutely.
period of time. I mean, that was almost real time, by the way. That's how long. Yeah.
Really, it really was. Yeah, we and to be honest, there was no double takes or extra takes. It was all real time. And again, the only prep that I actually had done, believe it or not, was the agnolotti being just blanched off, which only took minutes because it was fresh pasta. So putting together a meal like that was it took no time at all. The halibut's really nice to do too because you know, it's a meatier fish, so it will hold when you're making it in a sauce. And it really complements the flavors with the lobster as well. So it's again.
Have you tried it with walleye? Have you tried
You know what? I haven't tried that particular dish with walleye, but I'll tell you right now, it'd probably be unbelievable.
I'll bet you it would be sweet.
Oh, for sure.
If we catch a walleye in the next couple of weeks, buddy, we're dropping it off at your dropping it on your doorstep.
Yeah, you might have to purulate it because I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to be catching anything. I've been having a terrible last few weeks out on the water, so I mean the market is my best friend right now.
Oh, man, it looks good.
Great piece, man. Really, really appreciate it. Really enjoyed it. For folks out there watching, if you had any questions for Antonio that you'd like to send off to him, first of all, I think we have his coordinates plastered all over our site. If not, go to fishncanada.com. We'll hook you up with them. But
yeah, we're going to post that recipe. I'm sure we're going to post that whole video up, I would assume, on our site, right? So,
right.
Yeah, and it's a very simple grocery list. You need nothing other than some cherry tomatoes, a bottle of sambuca, a little bit of garlic, and some cream.
Now, see, we used to do this. I guess it stopped about 20 years ago, but for the first 15 years or so on the Fish in Canada show, we used to have Fish du Jour every week. And we traveled around everywhere we went to shoot a show. We would source out the local, you know, chef, the guy who was known for his fish recipes, and we'd go in and shoot Fish du Jours with that person. And 9 times out of 10, maybe even 10 times out of 10, Antonio, there was a lot of sampling of the liqueurs and the wines and the chefs were doing behind the scenes that we caught.
Well, yeah. I'll tell you right now, I don't even know if I've ever cooked sober.
That's awesome.
Tattoos and booze. That's what we do as chefs.
Hey, you know what? Very quickly, I'm not going to drop names, but I have a friend who has a brother-in-law who's a professional chef, and they get a chef get-together every year at a lake in a cottage. Wow. To be a fishing time, and that they don't ever get out of the cottage. They just booze it up the whole friggin' time. They eat great, but apparently they drink more booze than the Arcona boys. So those boys can go.
Well, you know what? I mean, being a chef, obviously, you know, you're always tasting the food. You're constantly tasting, and wine pairing is a big thing, especially with seafood. With white wines and you know, with red meats, red wines, and so you know, you come accustomed to it, and it's really like it goes hand in hand when you're cooking and you're sampling, and you know, you're trying to pair things, and you come up with all these different recipes. So when we're in the kitchen and it's all fires are blazing and we're going, you know, sometimes to take a little ease off, you have your little glass on the side, a little bit of sambuca, a little bit of espresso. It's all you need, keeps you going. And because we work a lot of hours. Being a chef is not easy per se, especially during, you know, a dinner rush or even a brunch rush or breakfast, whatever it is. It's your go, go, go. So the time that you have to sort of take back, you know, you have a drink, and it really helps you calm down.
I also think that chefs, you have to have a certain type of personality to be a chef. I've yet to right. I've yet to meet a chef that's kind of, ho hum and sort of a dull individual. You guys are all dynamic and exciting and full of life, and you exude. Like I was watching you do that piece, like you put your whole persona into that simple little dish. But
Yeah.
I saw Antonio in every little piece of that, and it's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we're in a weird way, like you said in the segment before I came on, is we are artists. It's funny, you can be painting pictures or you can be a graphic designer, but our art is on the plate, and you eat with your eyes these days. And I've never sent out a dish, or I've never worked on a dish that if I didn't like the way visually it looked, I wouldn't send it out. So if I can't eat it, or if I don't think it looks good, I wouldn't serve it to the public.
Shore lunch, would you make your own batter or go for the standard out of the box batter?
I always make my own batter. I've had fish crisp before, and I think it's great. I've had all different flavors. Usually when we go out ice fishing, it's a go-to. My cousins or whatever will always bring the fish crisp, and they're always embarrassed when they say, what's Antonio going to say about this? And I love it. Like there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But my go-to is I'll bring a bottle of Guinness with me, some flour and some salt, and that's all I'll need. And I really like doing the beer batters. It's one of my favorite things to do. But again, you gotta plan it. Not every fisherman's going to go out there with Guinness and flour and all this stuff. It's easy to bring a box of fish crisp with you in a plastic bag. So I get it. But for me, I'll put a little bit more effort into it. And my plan is with Fish du Jour is I want to show people how you can plan it and how you can pack light with only the essentials that you need. And you could actually put on a pretty good display. And I'm planning on doing that with Fish du Jour.
Most fishermen I know would not be bringing Guinness. They'd have a substitute, and they'd have about 24 of them. If I have all my buddies, three included, but it might not be Guinness oriented, to be honest.
But can you imagine whipping up something like that on the next outing? That evening at camp, whipping up something like that for the guys with their walleye or pike or whatever they caught that day. That'd be fantastic.
And I've done it. I mean, we've had shore lunches, my friends and I, at the side of the Moira River. Like we've done everything from pike, walleye, perch, crappie. We've done it, and I've done it some different ways. And it's always easy for me to impress because they expect it. But it'd be great if people watching actually attempt and see how easy it could really be. And I'll tell you another thing. The hardest part of doing a shore lunch, guys, is cleaning the fish. Cleaning the fish properly is probably the most important thing, because I've seen, like I've been out there with friends, and especially ice fishing, when you're out there and there's tons of people around and you walking by and it's a big party on the lake. And I've seen guys just destroying the fish, and you're literally getting a half an ounce of meat because they're not cleaning it properly. And then, you throw that into a fryer, you're eating paper. So, cleaning the fish is the most important thing properly. And again, I'd love to display it. And I think that, some simple ingredients you pack, and you can really change up from your old traditional shore lunch.
Well, Antonio, you blew us away tonight for sure. And hopefully all of the rest, and I'm sure they will be, all the rest of the Fish du Jours will be as tremendous looking, I'm sure. And by the way, Pete and I didn't get a sample of any of this stuff. Just wanted you to know. I don't know whether you sent some over with the boys after they finished shooting, or whether
I tried to send it over, but I think the camera boys ate it all before.
Yeah, I think Mikey had a lot more.
They ate it before they were even putting the cameras down. I know those right now. I guarantee you.
Antonio, thank you so much. We're so honored and thrilled that you've joined us here on Fishing Canada Live. It's an absolute thrill having you, and it's going to be a blast, man.
Thank you very much for having me, guys.
All right, Antonio Meleca. He is the in-house chef, the Fish du Jour guy. We'll have him all over our site. You can get that recipe. We're going to post it. I guess I'm assuming today, tomorrow, whenever. Very soon. It'll be this week for sure. It'll be up. Yeah, sure. But that looked delicious. My God! I could smell those ingredients. I bet only Mikey and Jordan know what that actually smelled like. I bet they were privy to that. I bet you that was such an aroma in that. Like he said, his kids were upstairs. They could probably smell that cooking when they were doing their homeschooling. And lobster stuffed agnolotti. Like, how do you even do it? I should ask, how does that even happen? Yeah, I know. Hey, isn't that something? Anyway, gotta be done, buddy. I can see you doing that one day. I can see you doing that one day. Got to try it for sure. All right. What else we got, buddy? We
Clean up time. Of course, everybody needs to clean up, you morons, Bowman and Viola.
My woodshop teacher, Alvin Hiltz, used to say, Viola, clean up, you moron. That's what we're about to do.
We just want to make sure everybody goes to fishncanada.com. Of course, like Ann said at the top of the show, a couple of Mercury, one Mercury and one Mercury Princecraft draw still going. They got another. Well, there's a little bit of time. You got a lot of votes left, a lot of ballots to be put in for that. So you got to make sure you get in there and do our finale for those great draws. Go ahead. You're trying to say something. What do you want to say?
Yeah, I think we should tell them that, starting very soon. I don't know. I haven't even been given the date yet, but I'm just to the hell with being given the date. I think we just make it an announcement right now. We're going to be giving away that beautiful fish package from Garmin. The Panoptics fishing package.
You're getting cheap. We have two we're going to give away. One, there's two different types to be given away.
Excuse me. At least I came out of the closet and said something. You haven't even been saying anything about it. Now you.
I don't have the power. I don't have the stripes on my shoulder enough to say it yet. I have to wait for Commandatore here. Is there? Yeah. Okay. The cat is under the bag. I'm going to definitely. I want to show in the near future. This prize coming up because it's very worthy of the prize. We have a Striker 4 Garmin ice fishing kit coming up, which is a nice little prize in itself. But we have a Butte coming up. There's going to be a portable ice fishing package, portable package / ice fishing package with live scope, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Children of all. This is so slick. Like this is so slick, this setup. So we're gonna unveil that to you and show you all about it, and that'll be in one of our new draws coming up. But it's what Garmin has done here is incredible. What they've given us.
Coming up when? Coming up.
I don't know. That's I'm gonna show them. You're gonna tell them. I'm gonna be the show and tell. I show, you tell.
All right. All right. We'll have a date next week. It's going to be very soon.
Perfect.
It'll probably be before this current Mercury deal is done.
Speaking of which, of Garmin, if you haven't seen on our site yet, you got to check out the new item they have out. It's called the Garmin Striker Cast. So now for all you shore anglers that they say you can't afford fish finding technology and all that stuff. Well, if you've got your little smartphone with you right there, you have got the technology. If you buy this, it connects to your phone, and it is the greatest thing since sliced bread. This thing, so we got a whole piece on it on our site. Check it out. It's really neat technology, and I think it's going to be groundbreaking in the sense of you don't have to buy extra head units, extra visual units, extra monitors, and all that. Your phone does it. You hook this thing up to your phone, and it gives you a fish finding reading, and it draws you maps, Angelo, with 1 foot contours.
Say it ain't so.
It's so, brother. It's so cool. Garmin is so, they are just there. And as well on our site, as we showed that maniac boater in the front of the show there, that November 25th is his court date. Yep, we're going to keep everybody updated on that one as well. So.
And like I said, I'd like to get him on the show. I'm fascinated by that type of person. I'd love to get into his head and see what.
Yeah, it's a good show.
So don't forget, it's all happening at fishncanada.com. Also on our YouTube channel. We'd like you to share this stuff, especially that recipe. Be a good one to share with your friends. Show them just how cultured you are. How's that? Also, give us a like or two if you haven't done that already. And of course, subscribe to anything that we're involved in. That's how we get back from what we give. You need to help us, and we help you. We promise you we will have interesting guests on every week with all kinds of great information, great products to give away, but we need your help. I know most of you, if not all of you that are watching right now, already understand that concept, and we appreciate it. Bring it on, though. We need all the help we can get, as you know.
And Calvin, no, it's not a great little doohickey. It's a big advancement in technology. How's that?
Thank you, as usual. Calvin, we appreciate your input. All right, on behalf of the entire Fish in Canada crew, we want to thank everybody for joining us again tonight. We will be back 1 full week from tonight, 8 o'clock next Tuesday. Not sure who's going to be on. Do we know? By the way, they let us know it all around here.
God, come on. You
No,
can't.
I'm just asking. I've been away for a while. I don't know what. Maybe you guys.
Actually, they probably have it lined up. I'm not gonna take it away from anybody else out there because they know that you and I, number one, we're too busy, and number two, if they told us we wouldn't obtain and maintain and keep it in our heads anyway, so they're just, why would they even tell us? So we got the crew working for us. We got Mike, we got Jordan, we got Sarah working with us here on this thing, and they're doing the great job behind the scenes. And that's all we really have to worry about. Right?
All right, that's it. Go make some of that wonderful Fish du Jour, guys, and let us know what it's like next week.
Yes.
On behalf of the entire team, I want to thank you once again. Good night, folks. See you next week.
A good angler is very versatile and also able to think on their feet and make decisions based on the conditions, right?
He got off because of you.
Of course.
No,
listen.
I had him on. I was doing my thing, and then you told me to stop.
Just listen to the man.
Yes.
Learn from the man. Don't aggravate the man.
Set the hook. Yes, set the hook.
Yes. That's the biggest bass I've ever seen, nevertheless caught.